the unavoidable encounter. For millennia, the galactic concord had recorded every species' first encounter with humans. None had survived intact. The Ziarthak? Consumed by their own machines after humans introduced the idea of self-replicating AI. The Varn Dominion? Collapsed in mere decades as human economics turned their empire into a playground of corporate warfare. The mighty Zelran? Overwhelmed when humans weaponized gravitational anomalies in ways no sane species should have even considered. Every empire that had ever met humanity was either destroyed, assimilated, or rendered irrelevant. But we endured. Because we learned the one lesson no other species had. Never let them be creative. The Urek Gambit. The Urek were never the strongest. We lacked the technological supremacy of the Varn, the military prowess of the Zelran, or the sheer adaptability of humans. But we were patient. And we studied. When humans emerged, our greatest minds worked in secrecy, deciphering why other species had fallen. The answer was terrifyingly simple. Humans were not the deadliest warriors. They were not the fastest, nor the strongest, nor the most numerous. But their minds, those damn unpredictable, chaotic minds, were their greatest weapon. They saw possibilities where others saw limitations. They created when others only copied. They turned the impossible into a challenge and the improbable into reality. And so, before we ever made contact, we developed the Gambit. A strategy no other species had attempted. If we could not defeat humans through strength, we would control the one thing that made them dangerous. Their creativity. The illusion of superiority. When humans finally noticed us, we were ready. We did not challenge them. We did not fight them. Instead, we welcomed them. We made ourselves seem unimpressive. We presented ourselves as followers, not leaders. We let them believe they were the first to innovate. And most importantly, we made sure no human ever felt the need to be creative. The dangerous game. We structured our society around this deception. Every human diplomat, every scientist, every explorer that visited our world saw a civilization of efficiency but not creativity. Our technology? We let humans believe it was all reverse-engineered from older, greater civilizations. Our economy? We designed it to appear stable yet unremarkable. Our culture? We carefully curated an illusion of predictability. And so, humanity, seeing no need to interfere, simply let us be. We had done what no other species had achieved. We survived. But even the best deceptions are not foolproof. And we soon learned that containing human creativity was far more dangerous than we ever imagined. Because one day, a single human scientist stumbled upon something they were never meant to see. And everything began to unravel. A mistake in the design. For centuries, the Urek strategy had worked flawlessly. Humanity, so used to conquest, so eager to shape the universe in its own image, had ignored us. They saw no reason to interfere, no reason to challenge, no reason to think too deeply about us. But all it took was one mistake. One oversight in our carefully structured illusion. A single spark. And humans? They never let a spark die out. The scientist who asked why. Her name was Dr. Ayesha Patel. A xenobiologist. A geneticist. A researcher. But above all, a human. She had visited dozens of worlds, studied hundreds of species, and bored easily when faced with the mundane. So when she was assigned to the Urek homeworld as part of a long-term diplomatic research mission, her expectations were low. The Urek were predictable. Efficient but unremarkable. There was nothing interesting to discover. Until she noticed something impossible. The evolutionary puzzle. The Urek had presented themselves as a species with a slow, steady evolutionary history. No great leaps. No sudden changes. But the data told a different story. Dr. Patel noticed that the Urek genetic structure contained fragments of adaptation far beyond what their society suggested. Traits that should have indicated a history of aggressive innovation. But there were no records of such a past. No wars of rapid technological advancement. No cultural revolutions. No sudden bursts of progress. It didn't make sense. The Urek should have been pioneers in technology. Yet they weren't. Something was missing. And Patel had just found the first crack in the illusion. The question that should never have been asked. Why does your species lack creative divergence? The question was harmless on the surface. But to the Urek? It was a threat more dangerous than any weapon. The moment it was spoken, alarm bells rang across the entire network. For centuries we had controlled how humans perceived us. But this was not supposed to happen. Humans were never meant to be curious about us. Yet here was Dr. Patel looking at our history as if she had found a secret no one else had ever noticed. Containment fails. Immediately, the UREC High Council convened an emergency session. We must control the narrative. We will provide false data. We will misdirect. She must not suspect the truth. But it was too late. Because humans never let go of a mystery. The more we tried to push Patel away, the more she dug deeper. She requested historical archives, genetic drift analyses, linguistic evolution models. And with each request, she found more inconsistencies. The cracks in our deception widened. Until finally, she made the connection. The UREC were once a species of innovators, of creators, of thinkers. But at some point, that creativity was removed. Why? The realization. Dr. Patel presented her findings to the human scientific community. The UREC had not simply stagnated. They had actively suppressed their own creativity. This was unprecedented. No species had ever willingly chosen to limit their own potential. The humans were fascinated. And worse, they were inspired. Because if creativity could be suppressed, it could also be restored. The UREC had spent centuries ensuring that humans never saw them as interesting. Now, we were about to become the most interesting puzzle they had ever found. And there was no way to stop them. The catalyst of curiosity. For centuries, the UREC had survived by suppressing human curiosity. We had carefully constructed a reality where we were unimpressive, unremarkable, and, above all, not worth deeper investigation. Dr. Ayesha Patel shattered that illusion. Her research spread like wildfire through human academia. A species that has deliberately erased its own creative potential? It was the most fascinating discovery in centuries. And humans? They don't just let mysteries sit. They solve them. The expedition of dangerous ideas. Dr. Patel wasn't the only one investigating anymore. The Terran Scientific Union dispatched researchers, cultural analysts, and sociologists to UREC space. They combed through every detail of our civilization. They found the erased histories. They unearthed the hidden records of our past innovations. They discovered the truth. The UREC had not always been a race of complacent efficiency. Once, long ago, we had been visionaries. But then we had encountered humanity's early influence. And we had seen what unchecked creativity led to. We had seen civilizations rise and fall under the weight of human innovation. We had seen technological advancements spiral into self-destruction. We had witnessed ideas reshape entire empires overnight. And so, we made a decision no other species had dared to make. We chose safety over progress. Survival over innovation. Order over chaos. We designed a society where new ideas would never be born. And for generations it had worked. Until the humans noticed. Until they started asking questions. The spark of the forbidden. What would happen if we reversed this suppression? That was the question that finally sealed our fate. Because humans didn't just theorize. They experimented. The first test was small. A controlled reintroduction of creativity in a closed environment. A single UREC scientist, isolated, shielded from the suppressive systems, was given access to human problem-solving exercises. And within weeks, he was thinking in ways no UREC had in generations. His thoughts became erratic. His solutions became unpredictable. His questions became dangerous. And then he made something new. A device that could alter the UREC neurological dampeners. A key to unlocking every suppressed mind in our species. For the first time in centuries, a UREC created something that had never existed before. And with that single act, our downfall had begun. The collapse begins. Once the experiment's results were leaked, the UREC population fractured. There were those who wanted to remain as we were. And there were those who wanted to see what we could have been. The human researchers tried to mediate, but it was too late. The very thing we had feared had now been set in motion. Creativity could not be contained once it had been set free. Some UREC, driven by newly awakened ideas, began dismantling the very foundations of our suppressive society. They broke the control systems. They rediscovered art, philosophy, imagination. They started dreaming again. And others? They saw this as the beginning of chaos. To them, humanity had done what it always did. They had introduced something that could never be undone. They had turned our stability into disorder. The UREC civil war was inevitable. And humans? They just watched. The inevitability of change. For centuries we had held back the floodgates. Now the dam had shattered. Cities fell as factions fought over the future of our species. Would we embrace creativity? Or would we return to order? The war lasted only a few years. But in the end, the choice was already made. Because creativity, once awakened, never dies. The Urek would never be the same again. And it was all because of humans. The war ends, but the chaos remains. The Urek Civil War had been short by human standards, only a few years. But for our kind, it had felt like an eternity. We had spent centuries avoiding change. And now, we had been forced to experience 1,000 years of progress all at once. By the time the last battle was fought, our world was unrecognizable. Cities had been abandoned. Old power structures had crumbled. The systems that had controlled our thoughts for generations had been destroyed. And in their place? Nothing but uncertainty. The humans never left. We had expected the humans to intervene when our war began. But they didn't. They simply observed. They watched as we tore down our own history. They had seen this happen before. On Earth. On 100 other planets. They knew exactly what would come next. When the war was over, they sent envoys, not conquerors. They came not to rule but to guide. And that terrified us more than anything. Because humans don't just conquer with weapons. They conquer with ideas. And we had just let them open our minds. The first generation of creators. For the first time in centuries, young Urek were born without the suppressive systems. They were different. Restless. Unpredictable. Driven by questions. They sketched in the dirt. They built things that had no purpose. They imagined futures beyond efficiency. To the elders, these children were dangerous. But to the humans, they were beautiful. The fear of an uncertain future. Many of us wanted to rebuild what we had lost. To return to the safety of order. But we knew deep down that it was impossible. The moment we let creativity return, we had sealed our fate. There was no going back. We were no longer the species that had mastered survival through stagnation. Now we were something else. Something we couldn't yet define. The humans' final lesson. Before they left, the humans gave us one last gift. It was not a weapon. Not technology. Not control. It was a story. A simple book left in our hands. A human tale of a world that had once lived in fear of progress. A world that had tried to control thought. A world that had burned its dreamers at the stake. And yet, despite all of it, that world had still given birth to explorers. To artists. To dreamers. That world had become Earth. And in the final words of the book, the lesson was clear. Creativity cannot be killed. It can only be delayed. And now, for the first time in our history, we understood. The end of the old Urek. The Urek would never again be what we once were. The world we had built was gone. We had tried to protect ourselves from the dangers of creativity. But instead we had made ourselves weak. And in the end, it was the thing we feared most that had saved us. Now, as we looked toward the stars, we saw them as the humans did. Not as barriers to survival, but as an infinite canvas for creation. Subscribe to the Void Narratives. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe to the Void Narratives for more epic sci-fi tales of humanity's impact on the universe. Rocket new stories every week. Rocket. Like, comment, and share to support the channel. And remember, curiosity is humanity's greatest weapon.